Hello and welcome back to Lightning Health. I am super excited for this week's vlog to be on, drumroll, the Enneagram. So, Enneagram has been a part of my life for the past couple of years now, and on the surface, I think it's kind of hard to make the connection between Enneagram and health. That being said, once you really take a really solid look at what Enneagram is to its core, I think it can be really helpful in us understanding ourselves a little bit better, not only, in the workplace or in our relationships, which relationships are definitely a part of our health as a whole, but also in determining, what type of exerciser are you? Are you someone who is a little bit more obstinate to exercise, or is your Enneagram type someone who can jump right into something? Or what are your barriers when it comes to nutrition? Do some of the common descriptions or the common themes of your Enneagram type make sense with some of the problems that you've had with different diets that you've tried or nutrition? And I think it's all tied, and I'm really excited to kind of explore that this week. So first things first, I just want to talk about what Enneagram is. So you've probably heard of it before. You might have also heard of like Myers-Briggs test. You have probably heard of like horoscopes. So out of all of these, Enneagram has kind of been the one that I most relate to and that makes the most sense to me. I don't even want to put horoscopes in the same vein because like there is scientific research that goes along with like Myers-Briggs and Enneagram and these types of personality tests and horoscopes. You can love them, that's great, but I think they are kind of stupid, Anyway, so Enneagram, just looking at like what is the definition, reading this from Wikipedia, you're welcome, a model of the human psyche which is principally understood and taught as typology of 9 interconnected personality types. So there's some discrepancy on whether Enneagram came about like in like the mid 1900s or whether it's like dated back like way to like, I don't know when, but way far back in like India, and yeah, they're not exactly sure where Enneagram started, but it has been around for a while, and it's basically the idea of there are 9 different personality types, and most likely there's one where your personality fits very closely with the type. So going on to the website, the Enneagram Institute, there are a couple of points that I wanted to point out to you. 1, people do not change from one basic personality type to another. 2, the descriptions of the personality types are universal and apply equally to males and females, since no type is inherently masculine or feminine. 3, not everything in the description of your basic type will apply to you all the time, because you fluctuate constantly among healthy, average, and unhealthy traits that make up your personality type. So, if you don't know anything about Enneagram, probably a little confused by this, but each of the types has good and bad things about them. I am a type 3, which is considered the achiever, and that means that, I'm always trying to achieve, but also, to my detriment, sometimes that means that I never slow down and I don't appreciate life sometimes, and there is good with the bad, and that is the same with every single Enneagram type. And depending upon where you are in life, you're going to identify with those good and with those bad, right? The Enneagram uses numbers to designate each of the types because numbers are value neutral. They imply the whole range of attitudes and behaviors of each type without specifying anything positive or negative. Unlike the labels used in psychiatry, numbers provide an unbiased shorthand way of indicating a lot about a person without being pejorative. Number 5 and number 6. The numerical rankings of the type is not significant. The larger number is no better than the smaller number. It is not better to be a 9 than a 2 because a 9 is a bigger number. And then number 6. No type is inherently better or worse than any other. While all the personality types have unique assets and liabilities, some types are often considered to be more desirable than others in any given culture or group. Furthermore, for one reason or another, you may not be happy being a particular type. You may feel that your type is handicapped in some way. As you learn more about all the types, you will see that just as each has unique capacities, each has different limitations. If some types are more esteemed in Western society than others, it is because of the qualities that society rewards, not because of any superior value of those types. The ideal is to become your best self, not to imitate the assets of another type. So, how do you figure out what Enneagram type you are? There are a lot of different tests. You can do the Enneagram Institute's Enneagram test. I think you have to pay for that one. There are tons of free versions. You can just Google free Enneagram test, and most likely there's gonna be one that's like glaringly obvious when you take that test. That being said, there's always a chance that you may identify with 2 of them very highly, and you might not know which one is yours, in which case you really should do some research to figure out what Enneagram type you are. Some people will say that you you should actually do that research first and then take a test to confirm. It's really up to you. I definitely took the test first, and mine was very, very clear that I was a 3 wing 4. And that's another thing that you'll see, that you have a wing on either side that you really connect with. So I'm a 3, that means that I am an achiever, but my wing is the individualist. So that is usually more like artists and creatives and that kind of thing. I will say right now, I am not an expert on Enneagram, and I am gonna be taking this week along with you to learn more about it and figure out exactly how it applies to our health and how being in tune with our Enneagram can actually help us understand our health better. But I am very excited to learn even more about this and have you along for the journey. Last thing, there are 9 Enneagram types. Let me just go through them really quick, just with like their bare bones adjectives. Type 1 is principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. Type 2 is generous, demonstrative, people-pleasing, and possessive. Feels like I'm doing some alliterations here. Okay. Type 3 is adaptable, excelling, driven, and image conscious. Is my hair okay? Type 4 is expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental. Type 5 is perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. Type 6 is engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. Type 7 is spontaneous, versatile, acquisitive, and scattered. Type 8 is self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. Type 9 is receptive, reassuring, complacent, and resigned. So definitely a lot to think about. Obviously, you could tell that in those descriptions, there are positive things, there are negative things. And just being aware that me as a type 3, great, I'm adaptable, great, I'm excelling, but also I'm image conscious. And I need to be thinking about how I can work to overcome that and how I can make sure that being image conscious doesn't influence me in a super negative way because I'm constantly thinking about what others think of me, right? Just being aware is super helpful for our mental health, and that's why I really, really love Enneagram. So stay tuned. We've got lots to talk about this week. It's probably a little too long, oops, but I'm really excited. Bye. Okay, it is so cold today, which is why I am very bundled up. I am on a little mission to do some research on Enneagram and figuring out exactly how different numbers may struggle with different health concepts and why. You know, I'm a 3, so if I look at this book, this is a book that Jared actually had already. It's called The Road Back to You. And for the 3, it says success-oriented, image-conscious, and wired for productivity. They are motivated by a need to be successful and to avoid failure. I should say, there was a parenthesis that I skipped over. They are motivated by a need to be or appear to be successful and to avoid failure. I think this is really interesting for me because I can definitely see how this affects me in terms of health. I think that this means that I have a strong desire for people to see me as being healthy, so that's probably why I'm interested in, you know, Instagram and YouTube and showing you my life. And I think that is one way that I hold myself accountable, you know, saying like, if I post myself at the gym, that means that I'm going to the gym. And if I'm posting my meals, that means that I'm eating healthier meals, right? That makes a lot of sense to me. And it also makes sense to me how it could be pretty destructive, that rather than finding sustainable exercise for the right reasons, which is that it is good for my body, it is the best way for me to give back to my body. Sometimes I may be exercising or eating well just because I want to appear to be doing those things, and obviously that can be not good. I think that I have to reconcile these two things, because I think that on the one hand, it holds me accountable. On the other hand, it may mean that I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, and I need to kind of like reconcile the two. And that's where I see Enneagram as being super helpful, because it's allowed me to understand myself a little bit more so that I can even come to terms with these and eventually be able to reconcile them. Because I'm not as familiar with the other numbers, it's not really something that I can analyze in this video. If you're a type 9, like, how does that change how you go about your health and wellness? But in this research, I'm definitely finding that it seems like every single type has pros and cons when it comes to health and different things that they would struggle with. And I hope that this will allow you to like take a second after you take your test, do the research, and come to terms with these components of your personality type, that once you do come to terms with them and kind of have a fuller understanding of it, may help you make better decisions when it comes to your health moving forward. That was very long-winded, but I do think that there's a lot there. Enneagram gives us such an opportunity for us to see ourselves from an outside perspective and make these connections and connect these different personality traits that we may not have seen in ourselves before but are absolutely there. And I think it's a really cool opportunity. So I'm gonna keep on doing that. I'm gonna talk to Jared about what Enneagram has been for him. I'll probably talk to my mom this week about what Enneagram has been for her. It's been pretty important in a lot of people's lives who I'm very close to. So it'll be kind of cool to see what people think. Hello. So Jared and I just got back from a lovely weekend upstate celebrating his birthday. Very much needed time to kind of turn off and just enjoy nature. We love hiking, so that was great. And I was thinking, I told you about trying the Truity Enneagram personality test, taking that Enneagram test. And I thought, why don't I take it with you? And we can kind of go through my results and look at what the other Enneagram types mean, because I've actually never taken the Truity test. I think I've taken a lot of them, but I don't think I've ever taken this one. So I figured we can all take it together. It's great. Okay, so 1.7 million people have taken this. Amazing. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I strive for perfection. I do think that part of taking the test is you're supposed to just like not think too hard. It's supposed to be like your first reaction to it. The question was, I think deeply about things. I always say to Jared, I'll like be in my own little, space sometimes. We'll just be like sitting together and he'll notice that I'm totally zoned out. He's like, wow, you must be thinking about something so deeply. And I'm like, it's one of two things. Either I am thinking extremely deeply about something, or there is absolutely nothing going on. I am concerned about security more than anything else. Nope. If I were, I wouldn't have chosen to be an actor. I'm a natural caretaker. Like I take care of other people, I guess. Some of these are weird. I feel a deep sense of grief for what I have lost. That's an odd question. I am an unusual sort of person. Agree. Okay, page 4 of 6. Lots of questions here. I find my mind to be a very interesting place. It's too weird for me. I don't know. I don't think so. Okay, final page. Here we go. Get my results. Here we go. Your primary type is 3, which I know. I got a little nervous because I saw a different number and I was like, wait, oh God, okay. Your primary type is 3. In this section, we'll dive deep into the 3 profile to understand how it drives your core emotions, fears, and desires, as well as how it impacts you in relationships and at work. Oh God, unlock your full report, gosh. Okay, so here are my matches. 98% match for a 3. Type 3 is also known as the achiever. 3s want to be successful and admired by others and are very conscious of their public image. So we talked about this in connection with what I do for health and wellness. I think that part of me making decisions around exercise and food is about how I am perceived, which can motivate me to make better decisions, but it also is not super sustainable in the long run. I need to be making those decisions to exercise and eat better because I know that they are so much better for my body. And that is something that I'm constantly struggling with and like trying to be better and trying to be transparent with you about, because it's definitely not easy for me, just like it's not easy for most people. So I'm also a 97% match with an 8. Type 8, that's what my dad is. Type 8 is also known as the challenger. 8s see themselves as strong and powerful and seek to stand up for what they believe in. I felt a little bit more challenger-y while taking this test than I have in the past, I think. Interestingly enough, maybe it's just I'm at like a point in my life where I do have a bit stronger opinions, and maybe we're just at a point in our lives where we are more polarized than ever, and it's more important than ever for us to speak out and speak our opinions. So that actually makes a lot of sense. So then I have one other pretty good match, and that would be a 1. A type 1 can be thought of as the perfectionist. Ones place a lot of emphasis on following the rules and doing things correctly. And yeah, sometimes I'm surprised that I don't get more of the 1. I don't know what it was about my upbringing. I have 3 older sisters, and I didn't have any rules. Like, there wasn't any rules in my family. Like, I didn't have a curfew. My parents never once checked to make sure that my homework was done. I was allowed to like have girls over, and like, you know, like I didn't have any rules at all. And yet my sisters and I were just like such rule followers. It's so odd. Like, my parents having the most hands-off approach really worked out for them, that we are pretty big rule followers. And I mean, I don't really like think of myself as like a prude, but definitely like rules, and so the 1 makes sense. I wonder how it applies to health and wellness. I'll have to think on that. But so I'm very interested. I wonder how much it is to unlock the report. No, I'm not gonna do it. $19. But if you're interested, you should definitely check it out. I would also I would use this test to figure out what your percentages are. That's fine. And then you can like do some Googling of like what are common traits of your Enneagram numbers. And that could be helpful to understand yourself a little bit more, understand your relationships a little bit more. I think that is another part of Enneagram that is really unique, because understanding yourself is one thing, understanding your number, but being able to understand your partner or your friends or your family and be able to see decisions that other people make from the perspective of their Enneagram type can be really helpful in building strong relationships. So that's another way that Enneagram can be really helpful to our health. Just like being able to empathize with the people who we have relationships with is really important, and Enneagram can help us with that. So this was fun. Let me know in the comments below if you take the Enneagram test and what you come up as, and if you agree, because that's the other thing, is that a lot of people will take these tests and they'll be like, no, that is absolutely wrong. And if you think it's wrong, then it's probably wrong. I would definitely suggest trying a different test and seeing kind of what happens with that. But I would love to know, so comment below. It's so snowy outside. So I'm researching Enneagram this week.
Yes.
You didn't introduce me to Enneagram, but you were instrumental in me taking it seriously.
You know, I think that's fair. Yes.
So what was your experience with Enneagram? How were you introduced?
I believe my mom told me about it. I think my mom.
Okay.
And then a good friend and mentor of mine, Matt Logan, uses it a lot in business and friendship and life. So the 2 of them, I would say.
I've never thought about this. Matt Logan is a theater creator, and it would be really interesting as a director if you could use the Enneagram numbers to help actors understand their character a little bit better.
He does.
Yeah. It's very interesting. But in order for that to really work, the actors all need to kind of be on board with Enneagram as well.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because him saying, oh, this character is a 4 doesn't really mean anything if they don't know what a 4 is.
Right. I think fortunately most of the people that we worked with were familiar with it.
Sure.
It's popular, you know?
It is popular. More popular than do you think it's more popular than Myers-Briggs or...
I think Myers-Briggs has definitely fallen out of favor.
I think so.
I mean, way in. And I think it's a lot more specific than astrology. Sorry, to the stars.
Astrology is fun. It's so stupid.
Well, people will fight you on that, you know.
I know they will. Yeah.
There's a lot more research.
Yeah.
On this.
A little bit more concrete here.
But I guess you would know better than me. What are you learning?
I mean, the more that I learn about the individual types, the more I find that one type fits there's usually one type that really fits a person. Mm-hmm. I do think that it is a way for us to understand relationships so much better.
Yeah.
Again, out of our, we were talking about last week with meditation, sometimes it's hard to figure out actionable steps to improve your mental health. And that's one of our 5 factors of health, and we have to continue to work on ways to improve our mental health, just as we work on ways to improve our physical health through nutrition and exercise and that kind of thing. And I think that it's also pretty difficult to take actionable steps to improve your relationships. And in a weird way, this is one of those steps that I think is really important.
Yes, I would say I don't think it's difficult to take actionable steps to improve your relationships.
Okay.
I think because those steps aren't like, you know, have an exercise practice or have a meditation practice. You don't really have a relationship practice.
Right.
But we know that having like honest conversations with people you're close to improves those relationships.
Right.
We know
Right.
that like understanding yourself and understanding, you know, you, like the more I learn about you and the more I learn about me, like the easier that gets.
Right.
So I don't think they're hard steps. I just think that because they're not like physical, we're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then we don't do it.
Yeah, but so that's exactly what I mean. I think that there are steps to improve your relationship, but communication is not necessarily an actionable step because you don't always have the opportunity for that communication to be super necessary. You know what I mean? Like, it's important for us to consider like open communication, but like we can't like come up with a circumstance that requires it. You know what I mean? Well, this is kind of like an actionable step that you can say like, oh, I'm learning about my partner. I'm learning that Jared is a 4, and I am also learning how 4s and 3s, what I am, work together and improve each other. And I mean, that's kind of a weird way of saying it, but can like, you know, like lift each other up. But then also what some of the difficulties can be between 3s and 4s.
Right.
And it was fascinating to find that like the difficulties between 3s and 4s really were things that
we've already talked about.
That have been like things that we do need to be cognizant of in our relationship, and like it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. That's why I keep getting drawn back into it. I think it is really interesting, and in my experience, like has held pretty solidly, you know. And when I like understand a little bit more about the people around me, I'm like, oh, I know how to treat you in a way that's like edifying.
Yeah.
And respectful.
Well, and that like translates not only to relationships with your partner, but it translates to relationships with your family. It translates to relationships in business. You know, like what do your employees need? And that's going to be different for all the different Enneagram types. And
right.
It's so funny that like I've really been doing a lot of research on my own type when it seems just as beneficial to be researching the other types as much as it is to research your own type. You know, like it's good to understand yourself, but it's also really good to understand all the people in your life.
Right. Right.
Which
especially
is why,
since it'll be like more surprising to you, in my experience.
Yeah, you'll understand it way less.
Right. Yeah. Because the stuff I read about type 4s, I'm like, oh yeah, that's scans. Oh, yep. Whereas like sometimes I read about type 3s and I'm like, oh my god, what is going on in that? I don't know. But it's helpful for me to like at least introduce that idea.
Which is interesting when I read that book of Jared's that has the Enneagram types in it. He has important people in his life who like are those numbers or whatever when he was researching, which is very, very interesting, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm talking to Sarah Jane Case, yes. Enneagram and Coffee this week.
Cannot wait. What time?
It's on Wednesday at, I don't remember. This is going to be after. It's going to come out
at
after.
Some point in the past he's talking
about. She runs the Instagram account Enneagram and Coffee. And there's like so much research on Enneagram. This is kind of like the most real life Enneagram gets to me that I've seen so far.
Real life, what do you mean?
Where like she takes the different Enneagram numbers and gives you real life scenarios for each of the numbers. So like, for example, I think this is interesting. Tips for rewarding yourself by Enneagram type. So she has 1 through 9, all different tips for rewarding yourself. For Jared, it would be discipline and structure is its own kind of reward. You want to talk about that?
It's just fun. I mean, that's not the one I would have picked. Yeah, I mean, I think I think discipline and structure in terms of like how I structure my days is an important way to like keep me on track. I don't consider that a reward, so I think that's interesting language, but yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And then for 3, reward yourself for small things, not just big accomplishments, which I definitely relate to.
Right. It's funny. I think she does a really good job. I think mine is weirdly in a negative cast and yours is in a positive cast. So I'm like, why is that the case?
And I think sometimes they are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is a really interesting point. But just like how there are positives and negatives to the Enneagram types.
Right. But I think, yeah, she's got a lot of good stuff.
What is another one? Okay. Word of the year by Enneagram type. Mm-hmm. Yours is start.
That's very fair.
From where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would rather something be like perfect. I just want something to be perfect, I think.
Yeah.
So I have trouble sometimes starting because if I don't have the idea laid out perfectly in my head, then I don't think it's worth starting and trying to figure it out as I go.
Right.
But then it never gets started, so.
Right. For 3, it is satisfaction over stats. And that makes so much sense to me.
Why so?
I think I'm always just trying to do like more. And I don't take enough time to take a step back and say like, but why? And what is the result? Do you feel satisfied from doing more and more? Or do you feel more satisfaction from doing the right things? And it's a hard balance to find, because I think that the more that you do, the more likely you will be to find satisfaction. Just like, probability, But I do think that I could be so much better about being really deliberate about the work that I'm doing versus just like throwing caution to the wind and doing everything. That makes a lot of sense.
Very telling that we work well together, because that we're describing the complete opposite thing, right?
Well, right.
Sam would like to be first and I would like to be best. So somewhere in between is a helpful medium, which it talks about. Enneagram things.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's bringing it back to health. I think that there is a way, and I'm going to be talking to Sarah Jane about this, to look at Enneagram and say like, oh, when we look at your Enneagram type, we could infer that there are going to be some challenges when it comes to nutrition or exercise or whatever that are going to be specific to your type, and that understanding that that is specific to your type may be instrumental in overcoming those challenges. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Because I think I get what you're saying. I think that like making a like workout plan for me is particularly tough, because I don't like to feel like tied down to a plan, and some days I just do not feel well or like motivated, and so a lot of me is like, oh, just like go with that feeling, like don't try to fight it. We've discovered not super healthy. Feel very sad. So actually, to tie it to the Enneagram, like having that kind of structure that keeps me in track, like saying I'm gonna work out these 5 days of the week and take the 2 rest days, and just making that an automatic thing that I don't have to decide to do based on how I'm feeling at the time is actually very helpful. Right.
I mean, that normally a 4 would be less about structure and more about like experience and like what you feel.
Sure.
I think that you understanding that about yourself, but also knowing that you do need to exercise
must.
Yeah, I mean, like, for not only just because like it's good for your body, but because you know that it makes you feel better, makes you put in and implement more routines than you generally would,
Right, and knowing that that routine is like very grounding for me.
Yep.
It's a compounded effect.
So I'm really interested in chatting with Sarah Jane about how all of these Enneagram types really do affect your health. But that being said, if it's affecting the way that we look at relationships, it is. You know what I mean? Like right. Like when we like look at health as a whole, we can't separate like the relationships part out of it and say like, oh, but it's also helping our exercise and nutrition. I'm like, because if it's helping our relationships, that's enough. It is helping our health,
Right.
So
I think what you're also getting at too is like, we know that Enneagram has to deal with like what we find motivating and fulfilling and engaging, and what we are more adverse to, right?
Yep.
And that can be really helpful in determining like how we implement like the physical health strategies.
Exactly.
So it's the relationship and mental health as well, but also like, if I know what motivates me, then if I can like worm that into a physical exercise practice too, great.
It goes back to that mindset of like physical health is mental health and mental health is physical health. And if we like focus on mental health practices and relationship practices, those are going to influence our physical health practices.
Right.
And vice versa. So
I agree.
Enneagram is so cool. So y'all should definitely check it out and stay tuned for my talk with Sarah Jane. Hello. So I am just getting ready to go live with one of my favorite Instagram accounts, Enneagram and Coffee. Her name is Sarah Jane Case, and she is based in Asheville, North Carolina. And if you haven't checked out her account, it's like just so poignant and thoughtful, and she just gives really, really amazing like real life applicable examples of how the Enneagram is everywhere. And I'm so excited to chat with her. I will leave a link to our chat in the description here. On a different note, I am having like I'm kind of having like an allergic reaction to something. I'm not exactly sure what, but my eyes are like, they've been puffed up for like 2 days. I don't know what's happening, but it's okay. Yeah, I'll figure it out. I usually don't put very much stuff on my skin, and I tried a new skincare thing today, or I guess it was 2 days ago, and I've been puffed up ever since. So I think it's one of the things that I put on my face, and hopefully that will get better. I feel very like dry and puffy, so ooh, stay tuned. Oh, one more thing. We finally decided what we're going to be putting on this wall right here that sits behind my desk, and that is above our sofa that we have in here. And we have like 9 frames of different colors that we ordered art for, and I'm really excited to show you our art. Art is so hard. It's like hard to make it not cliche and to make it special to both of us, but I really like what we picked out, and I'm excited to show you. I'm gonna set you up better. Nope, not that. Okay, sure. Ah, yes, much better. I think this is gonna become like one of my new favorite places to film. This is great. So I just finished my interview with Enneagram and Coffee. Sarah Jane is truly the sweetest, most brilliant person I've ever met. She's so great. Definitely follow her. There's a chance that the Instagram live didn't get saved. If it did, I'll post about it. If it didn't, she said that we'll talk again in a couple months. We'll do another one, so it's great. I can't wait. But I just wanted to leave you hoping that you will invest a little bit of time into Enneagram, figure out what your type is, and hopefully do a little bit of research on what the other types mean too, because I think that this is one tool that we can use. Wait, she said something really profound. I wrote it down. Give me a second. So, she said it's a tool, not psychology. And I thought that was really profound because it's not psychoanalyzing. It's not, us trying to be psychologists or psychiatrists. It is us using these personality types as tools to better understand our relationships and better take steps forward in our relationships and understand the people around us. And I hope that you'll take that seriously because it's a really cool opportunity and tool that we can use. And I hope that you're interested. I'll see you next week. What are we talking about? Oh my God, we're talking about some of my favorite, very easy, healthy meals. So, a very fun video. Jared and I are gonna do a lot of cooking. Bye!